Vic, what's up, brother? It's so great to see you. Thanks for joining me on the podcast today.
Man, I'm glad to be here, Ryan. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to it. Michael reached out to me and he had shared a little bit about what you're up to. And I did my due diligence. I did my research, which is something I know you're familiar with.
Uh-oh.
And I was like, oh, yeah, we got to have this guy on the podcast. If it doesn't serve anybody else, it serves me. I'm like, all right, what can I talk to them about that I need coaching with? That's one of the greatest benefits of the podcasting space.
That's great, man. Well, I'm glad to share with you anything I know and I've learned. I've been through the school of hard knocks a few times, so there's a little carnage and some success that I'm happy to share.
Have you always been an entrepreneur? I've found that a lot of people or business owner. I don't know what term, what label do you prefer? Is it entrepreneur? Is it business owner? How do you look at yourself?
Man, it seems that this entrepreneur term is kind of the prevalent term that everyone talks about. Have you ever tried to spell entrepreneur? It's got to be like one of the hardest words in the world to spell.
Yeah,
I mean, like,
yeah.
to this day, after being an entrepreneur for 25 years, I'm like, oh, every time thank God for spell checks. So yeah, I
I
think
know
I'm an
you were
entrepreneur.
on. I know you were on Dave Ramsey, and I like the concept of entree leadership just because it's easier for me to spell than entrepreneurship. So
Yeah, it is easier to spell. I don't know if it's easier to say, but it's definitely easier to spell. So, yeah, my career started out as I came from, kind of a middle class family, and we didn't have a ton of resources, and I love the idea of the creativity of business, and so I made my circuit through working through fast food chains and waiting tables and all the jobs you could think of, and at some point in time, I decided that I was going to give it a go and be an entrepreneur. And, I think I made that decision when I had nothing to lose, everything to gain. So I was kind of starting from zero and went from there. But yeah, I've enjoyed the last 25 years of my career, building businesses and building teams and working with people. So probably a fair term.
what was your first jump into the entrepreneurship world? Was it mowing lawns at 10 years old, trying to solicit your neighbors, or was it something that developed a little bit later in life? Because and the reason I ask is for me, I was never like upselling baseball cards in the schoolyard like a lot of these guys you hear about entrepreneurship. I grew up thinking that you go to school and you get good grades, and if you can go to college, good. It wasn't pushed. It wasn't not pushed. But you work at a job and you work your 9 to 5. Entrepreneurship didn't come until I was about 28, maybe somewhere in there, 20, 27, 28 years old. What was it like for you though?
Yeah. So for me, I got out of college. I put myself through college, and I don't know if that was a great use of time in hindsight, but went to college, got out. And, I did a lot of odd, small things while I was a teenager, a young guy trying to scrap and make a little bit of money. I had to buy things like my first car, so I needed some cash. And so I had these odd jobs. And when I got out of college, I went to work for JP Morgan, but I had a young family. I had kind of an unplanned young family. I had a wife who I've been married to for nearly 27 years. I had two young sons, and the wage I was making at the bank wasn't cutting it, and I needed to do something that was kind of a side hustle to make some money. And I owned a lawnmower, and I had my two hands. So I decided I would start doing some landscaping and mowing some lawns. So, I was kind of putting on a shirt and a tie at, 22 years old, driving to JP Morgan and racing home and going and cutting a few yards to make some extra cash. So, there's a lot of things I did along the way, but I would say that was my first business. And let me tell you, it was not glamorous. I figured out that I needed to build businesses that had teams of people and that I could scale and I could grow, because if I was going to be the sole source of labor, me and that lawnmower, we were probably going to have some limited success.
It's interesting that you say lawn, because I didn't know when I use that example of mowing lawns, I didn't know that. So it's funny that
Oh
you would
yeah,
say that. You
yeah.
might also be able to hear there's a young man actually mowing our lawn right now. You might actually be able to hear it. So he's out here mowing the lawn right now. So it's funny that you talk about that right now.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's great. And I spent a few years at JP Morgan, a couple of years, and I decided that I probably wasn't going to be able to be a great rule follower, and that I wanted to go be entrepreneurial, and I wanted to start my own business. And so I started my own business at 23, 24 years old. I really got going. And, the last 24, 25 years, I've started, I think 14 different companies. and love it. And it is, my identity is in being, a husband and a dad and a friend. But I will tell you, my passion and what I get so fired up about is building companies and helping people build companies. To me, it's a blank canvas, and it's creative, and there's so much mystery involved, right? You have no idea if it's going to succeed or fail. And, you don't know what's around the corner, but I love the mystery that comes along with being an entrepreneur and starting businesses. So it's kind of,
Yeah.
it's been my deal for a good while. And sometimes it looks really pretty up front, and it's really messy in the background. And I've learned along the way, and it's been a blast.
That's awesome. I'm really curious about I'm taking notes as we do this, because again, this is for me just as much as it might be anybody who happens to listen. You said something that doesn't resonate real well with me, and that is creating teams of people. I've always struggled with that. I like to do things semi solo, meaning I'll bring people in periodically to help me with different things, and I like having good guys around me, and we have a really, really good team of people. I don't know how much I want to continue to build these teams of people as much as it is use this tight knit community of guys that we have right now to fulfill different roles. Like, what are your thoughts on that? Of the pros and cons of having this big team versus doing it on your own?
I think, Ryan, it just depends what your agenda is, what your mission is, what you're after. As a young entrepreneur, I was after cash flow. I was trying to make a living. I was trying to support my family. And so it was a lot about me. It was a lot about what I was capable of doing. I mean, I was the sales guy. I was the warehouse manager, the office manager, the marketing specialist. Painfully, I was the guy navigating QuickBooks, trying to figure out accounting. And I built a business that had cash flow. But I think it really depends what your mission is. If your mission is that you want to build a business that has enterprise value and it stands beyond just you, and you have the opportunity. One of the cool things that I learned kind of later in my professional career was the whole concept that you could actually build a business that has enterprise value, and it's significantly worth more to the marketplace than it's worth to you. And so you could take and build something that you could get handsomely paid for. And even if you didn't get handsomely paid for it, you were building a legacy. So I think it just depends what your mission and what your goals are. Early on, I was just trying to make a living, and people were, transparently, I couldn't afford to hire people. And I wasn't good at managing people. I wasn't good at leading people. And so in my mind, I was kind of like, man, they're kind of a pain in the ass. And in today's age, here I am building businesses, and I talk openly with my teams about this. It is so hard to find people that are missionally driven, that are focused, that are committed, that really want to give it their all and build something extraordinary. So it's hard to find those people. But if you can find those people and you can figure out how to motivate them and lead them, and, lead them with compassion and empathy, and give them an ownership mindset, and create a paradigm where they're going to, feel like the business is as much theirs as it is yours, you're going to build enterprise value, and you're going to get, a lot out of it. So it just depends. If you're building a business that really is kind of, I don't want to say a hobby, but it's something that just you enjoy doing. It provides some free cash flow. You're not trying to build enterprise value. There's just so much creativity in today's marketplace where you can find people that are out there that want to, freelance. They want to be contract labor. They want to help out. And it's a great business model. There's nothing wrong with it, but it just depends what your goals are,
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I look at, as you're talking about that, I'm looking through my own lens. As far as enterprise value, that isn't something I'm completely interested in. And I say that because I've had people, for example, who will say, what is your exit strategy? I know what they're asking. The question doesn't compute for me, because I just don't have one. Like, my exit strategy is continue to do this for as long as I possibly can, and continue to innovate and continue to serve and help the guys we're trying to serve. So I don't have that big push for that enterprise value as much as I do cash flow and making sure that we have the ability to innovate, which I know is an important factor for you. But then I also think about the mission driven people. I'm glad you brought that up, because one thing we've been able to do, and this has been really valuable, is bring people up through our organization that were originally clients to varying degrees of what we're doing, who have now stepped into roles because I recognize that they're good at certain things. They have a certain skill set or characteristics that would make them good in certain spots. And we've built a really solid team based on, I think, almost exclusively clients of the business
That's
originally.
awesome. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny. Somebody recently asked me, they said, Vic, I've heard you on some podcasts and seen you in different places. Like, what's your motivation? What's your ambition? And, you know, it's for me, if I have anything to market, it's that I have the privilege today to owning a lot of different companies and operating those companies. And every day, the biggest challenge I have is finding world-class people that can come join our teams. And whether it's building, you know, complex you know, firearms that we build at Christensen Arms, or building robotic car wash systems that we build at Autech, whatever it may be. You know, I'm always looking for talent. So for even being here with you, Ryan, I mean, I love sharing my story and talking about it, but you know, if there's any exposure we're looking for, we're always looking for great people to join these companies. There's never too many of them. So it's super cool to hear that you've been able to build your business with a support network of clients. And I think there's a lot to be learned from that, is that if you can really give people the ability to see your business and to see your heart and to see your mission and to see what you're being courageous about and what you want to do, and they can understand that, you know, you're going to have alignment when they join you, right? They're going to be excited about your mission. They've had it. So, you know, we're in unique spots where we're able to say, hey, here's who we are. Here's what defines us. Here's what gets us fired up. Here's what we're going after, and bringing in those people. And think about this. Think about how many companies hire people blindly, and you have people that are looking for a job, and you have employers that are looking for people to come do work. And there's not a lot of alignment in values and beliefs when you do that. But when you're able to truly be transparent and say, hey, this is who I am, this is what I'm about, this is what we do, and the people come to you that say, hey, this guy aligns, this lady aligns with what my mission is and what I'm trying to accomplish. So yeah, I mean, for you, it's great, right? You probably have a long list of people that would love to be a part of this great work that you're doing. And, you know, you don't have room for all of them. Now, I'm an entrepreneur in the mindset of, if I have a long list of people that are like, hey, I want to be a part of it, hell, I'll start a new business for them. I mean, I tell people often, the only thing that slows me down from starting the next company or for making an acquisition of a business is knowing that I have world-class talent to be able to plug into those spots. So, you know, if you have an entrepreneurial mindset, there's endless opportunity. Where the shortage is with great talent that wants to join alongside and work with you.
Do you have any concerns though about, I think you said you've started roughly, or maybe even more, but you, at this point, maybe, and I can't remember exactly what you said, but 14 different companies. When you decide to acquire a company or to start a new business to fulfill this, like you're saying, is there worry that you're going to spread your time too thin? Because I know family is important to you. Obviously, you have your own personal goals that may not be professional goals; they're personal goals. Like, at what point is enough, or you feel like, hey, I'm going to get spread too thin, so these companies I have now are good? Like, how does that work? Because I can't envision doing more work than I am right now, honestly.
Yeah, it's a struggle. It's a struggle. I mean, I don't have some really well thought out, articulated answer to that makes it sound perfect. Is what I can tell you is my wife and my two sons have been on this journey with me for, you know, call it 26, 27 years. And we have a very, very close family. My sons are amazing men, and I've had a great time raising them and showing them what it means to be a man and what it looks like to be a man. But Ryan, I will tell you, there's not many sporting events that my kids were involved with that I missed. You know, there's not many things in life that I feel like I've missed with my family. I've always been really intentional about being available for my family and being involved with my family. So I think the answer to the question for me has been exactly what we were talking about. If I can find great people and I can surround myself with great people and create opportunities for them, then these businesses and these missions shouldn't require 120% of my attention. Now, the challenge is focus, right? The challenge is what's the most important thing going on right now, and where do you spend your time? And, there are some mornings that I wake up and I'm involved in, if I just go through the day of all the different businesses I'm involved with, it sounds complex and daunting, and it feels that way at the end of the day a lot of times. But it all comes back to people. It all comes back to people. If you have the ability and the opportunity to attract great talent and equip them and empower them and say, you know what, go win big. You're going to fail along the way and go get it done. That creates margin in my life. And I have time and energy. So if I laid everything out for you in those 14 companies, and even today, my portfolio and everything I have going on, it would sound like, it would be a fallacy of sounding like I'm some extraordinary Superman. The reality
Right.
of the reality of it is, man, I'm no Superman. I mean, I'm failing and struggling and learning, and trying to learn new things every single day, but is what's allowing the wheels to continue to turn in everything that I'm involved with. Even my family. I mean, I think about my wife and how she keeps, our family together and in motion, but everything that I'm involved with is as strong as the people that are involved in it with me. It's not about me. And it really, I mean, I don't say that to sound humble. I mean, it's impossible. It couldn't be about me.
I think and I'm just trying to think about the men who listen to this conversation, what they're thinking. And if I'm putting myself in their shoes, one of the biggest struggles I personally remember, and I'm sure a lot of these guys are dealing with, is when you have your first hire or you decide to bring somebody on, whether it's a partner or a contracted employee or a contractor or an employee, is that's going to cut into your bottom line. And a lot of guys feel that, right? I know that was really scary for me. If I have to pay this person a commission or a percentage or a part of ownership, then that's less on the table for me. That was really difficult for me to wrap my head around until I just pulled the trigger and did it. And I realized, okay, whatever I'm paying this individual and however I'm paying is more than making up for it in my time for creative flexibility, my time to start new businesses, my time to increase products or do sales, which is what I personally like. And it made up for itself in droves over and over again.
It's a long game mindset. It's a long game mindset. When you're hiring people, one of the most important things that any business professional, whether you're a company or you're an individual entrepreneur that's thinking about going from being a solopreneur to growing a team, the most important thing you can possibly do is to make sure you onboard people right and set the expectations and give them really a map. Don't try to be a guru to them, try to be a guide and give them a map of really where you want to go. And let me just tell you, Ryan, I've seen the biggest and had the opportunity to operate, multi-billion-dollar P&L companies all the way down to solo companies where it's just me and where I'm growing that business. And in all cases, companies really, really seem to struggle with onboarding people and getting them in the right position. And one of the things that I did as an early entrepreneur is I always had this vision about growing big and scaling, and I wanted to build a big business. And even before I had any of the funding that I would need, which my funding always came from, just like you said, selling more, man, I was just selling. And that's how I generated revenue to hire the next person. But I always found myself creating job descriptions for people long before I ever hired them. Like I knew I needed to hire this person down the road. So I remember, being 27, 28 years old, and I had this, file on my desktop, and I had like 10 job descriptions written for the next 10 people I was going to hire and what specifically they were going to do and what that was going to bring to the company as far as outcomes and values. Now, man, I sure wish ChatGPT existed back in that time because I could have gotten this job. I mean, it was a struggle, me sitting down trying to write a job description. Today you can write an amazing job description in about 3 minutes with AI. But, I was always thinking about, who is this person, and honestly, I was praying about it, right? I'm like, who is this person? What does it look like? And I visualized it before I just thought, you know what, I'm going to hire someone and bring them on board and hopefully things work out. And by the way, I don't know what the percentages are when you hire people around success and failure, but I've hired the most competent, qualified, high capacity CEOs to operate big businesses that have been complete misses on my part. And I've done the same with, you know, an hourly worker. But when you hire someone that is an exceptional talent, or even if they're not an exceptional talent, but they're passionate, they're driven, they're focused, they're disciplined, and they really know how to create outcomes, man, it's like hitting that one good shot in a golf game, right? I'm a horrible golfer. I mean, I'm not a good golfer, but I truly keep coming back because every once in a while I accidentally hit a 280-yard drive or I sink a
Right.
putt, and I'm
Right.
like, yeah,
I can
I
do
can do
this.
it. I can do it. And I'm the same way with people, man. I'm the exact same way. I mean, like, I get so discouraged and beat up because sometimes I make bad hires or I notice people let us down. But when you hire someone that is exceptional and helps you scale and grow your business, man, it's got to be the best feeling I have in business is seeing people win.
One of the things that I've been able to do that I actually really enjoy this, I'm curious about your thoughts, is taking somebody who has an aptitude for certain things, or maybe even is dabbling in a line of work that you need. So one that comes to mind is our podcast editor. His name's Chad Robeson. And uh, I knew that he wanted to start this podcast editing video production company, but he really wasn't doing. He was doing a little bit here and there. I'm like, cool, let me hire you. I'll hire you, and you can learn. I'll pay you to learn. And if you have courses and other things that you want, I'll pay for them. You just tell me what they are. And then now to see him doing it full time because of the work that he's doing here, but also because of referrals that I've made and his own efforts and work. I like doing that. I've got other people. I've had video guys who were doing some freelance stuff here and there. I'm like, all right, I got to get that guy before he gets big. So let's bring him in. He'll learn on my dime. It's good. It's a positive because they grow. The downside is they end up leaving you because now they're on to bigger and better things. But it's still kind of exciting for me to do it that way.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that's a very common scenario in business today. Is there a lot of people, especially entrepreneurs like yourself, right? I mean, you're an entrepreneurially minded guy. You're creative. You're doing great things. You're missionally driven and focused. And these people see that and they want to be part of it. But not only do they want to be part of it, they're also attracted to the fact that you're an entrepreneur and they want to come learn from you, and they ultimately want to be an entrepreneur. There's healthy tension there. There's healthy tension, and sometimes it causes you to beat your head against the wall, right? Because I've had some great people walk in my office and say, hey, man, I've been so inspired. I've had so much fun. I want to go do my own thing. And it's not about me saying, gosh, can we pay you a little more? It's not about that. It's really about, first of all, if I don't think they're going to be a successful entrepreneur, I'll do my very best to talk them out of it. But like you're talking about with Chad, where you're like, man, he's capable, he's competent, he's able, then let's be an advocate for that and equip him and go do it. And that circle that you build of these people that you help launch and support and encourage as they go do their own thing, it's absolutely, you know, it's life-giving, it's fulfilling. So but it's a challenge. And listen, it's a challenge that I have personally. I mean, I know that there's people that work for me that are thinking about starting their own business. And I almost feel like it's a race of, can I create and show them more opportunity here than they may have on their own? But at the end of the day, if somebody is, you know, truly intended to be an entrepreneur, especially if they're, you know, walking with the Lord, I'm not going to be able to get in the way of that. And I'm just going to support it and help them.
Well, I mean, okay, so you're talking about the Lord. So from a morality perspective, I think that's our job, right? Is to serve other people and to help them create an abundant lifestyle. But also just from a tactical, strategical level, like I think it's better to serve other people, even if they end up leaving and going out on their own and doing their own thing, and you might lose them and you need to bring somebody else in. I think from a strategic stand, I think I said strategical. That's not a word. That's kind of like George Bush's strategery blunder, but from a strategic, so let me just clarify there. From a strategic standpoint, those people are going to refer people to you. They're going to make connections. They're going to remember the good work that you did. So from a morality, ethical standpoint, yes. From a strategic, tactical standpoint, yes. I just don't understand why people wouldn't work more to help lead other people into going out and doing their own thing, even at some point.
Well, I mean, I'm not, I don't want to have a promotional pitch here, but I'm so passionate about it that I've created an entire community and platform called Epic, which stands for entrepreneurs, professionals, innovators, and creators. And I had the privilege to stand up at a big university and give a talk here a couple of years ago, and there was a guy that was going to go work for a Fortune 100 company, and he was asking me how to navigate the politics inside of a Fortune 100 company. Like, what does it look like? And I really scratched my head and I said, man, I said, that just sounds awful. I don't know why everyone doesn't want to be an entrepreneur. Now, everyone's not cutting the cloth of being an entrepreneur, but I'm with you. I mean, I really believe that it's a rewarding, fun, and not to use a simple term, but what goes around comes around. And the people that I've been able to support and help grow and do their own thing, I can't think of one that it hasn't been beneficial. And by the way, there's been several that have left to go start their own business and have called me a couple years later and said, hey, I'd like to come back. This didn't work out. Do you know how much more valuable that individual is when they've gone out and learned what it looks like to manage a business on their own, even if it wasn't successful? The stripes that they earn and what they learn in that process is powerful. So I agree with that. I'll tell you a quick story, and it kind of goes along these lines of, I was, I guess, 24, 25 years old and started my first business. And I had a guy walk in my office one day, and I'll try not to use super foul language, but he walked in my office and he was frustrated with me. And he said, Vic, he said, listen, man, he goes, you're giving 120%. Like you're doing all you can do and everything you can do. And you think you're better than everyone else. And I was like, man, that doesn't sound very good. And he said, you're a fig jam. And he called me a fig jam. And I'm like, man, I don't know what a fig jam is. Ryan, have you ever heard of a fig jam?
I don't know that term. No.
Okay. Yeah. So he said, I'm a fig jam. And so he wrote fig jam up on this dry erase board in my office. And I'll never forget this in my life. It really transformed me. And I said, well, what I'm a fig jam. Like, is that cool? And he's like, no. He goes, fig jam stands for fuck, I'm great. Just ask me. And I said, what? And he said, yeah, man, you're a fig jam. He said, he goes, listen, you can give 100, 110, 120, 130% all day long. But if you can surround yourself with people that give 80, 90%, he goes, the multiplier on that's going to be a lot greater than yourself. And I'm, to this day, I'm kind of critical of the 10X mentality. And I think it goes into what you and I are talking about of, do you want to spend all your time and all your energy, on yourself, or do you want to help other people grow and expand? And do you want to help them understand the path to getting to 110, 120%, whatever that number is, right? And so that was transformative for me at I think 24, 25 years old. Of, man, it doesn't need to be about me, because I can't 10X myself, right? I can't. I mean, it's not, I don't know what the right multiplier is, but it's not 10X. But if I can take, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 other people, and I can help encourage and support and educate and develop those people, they are going to be, they're the multiplier that they're going to provide is going to be way better than myself. And I just am thinking about what you and I are talking about. And I believe there's a big problem in society today where people are really self-absorbed, and they want to spend every minute of their energy and their time making themselves better. And that really doesn't have a compounding return at some point. It doesn't. The return is go build up other people. Listen, I absolutely want to be shredded. I have a bald head under this ball cap I have on here today, for those of you that can see me. And, there's a lot of things I desire to have, but it's been much more fulfilling for me to focus on myself and other people. And so your comment about, helping other people, being a kind of I would say not selfless, but someone that really is developing and pouring into other people. For me, it's just been much more rewarding, and it's liberating. It's liberating, right? Because I don't have to wake up in the morning and flex and go, okay, how's my bicep looking today? I'm not saying I don't do that, by the way. I wouldn't want you to know that. but anyway, it's not looking very good. But really, it's thinking about, man, how is John doing? How's Sue doing? How's Mike doing? Going down that list of these people that I work with and think about how are they developing and what are they doing and what does their business look like? Whether they're an employee or they have their own company. It's just been rewarding for me.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I felt the same. I think that's one of the plights of social media is that, you know, we're encouraged to build and develop these quote unquote personal brands and everything's about content, but it all revolves around you. I see this a lot, even in this sector of the space that I'm working in, is there's always this central figurehead, which I don't think is inherently wrong. I mean, you might make the same case for what we're doing here, but it seems that it's more common that the central figurehead's growth and visibility comes at the expense of those around him. And that's what I take issue with is if you're so large that you can't allow other people to shine, then I don't think you're doing your people justice or service. I think you're hindering them and you're stunting their potential growth.
It's biblical. I mean, it's biblical, right? I mean, the reality is that if it, are you trying to be the big God? Are you trying to be a little God? I mean, what are you trying to do? And listen, I am absolutely a driven, passionate, hard charging, guy in everything I do in my life. And I know that I overshadow people sometimes. And I hate that. I mean, that's not my mission. That's not what I'm after. I get wrapped up in my own ego. But when you talk about social media, and you talk about, even things like what we're doing today, I'm really cautious to make sure I'm vocal, not just talking to other people, but also talking to myself, that I'm not a know-it-all. I'm a 49-year-old man that, loves the Lord, loves my wife, loves my kid, loves to build businesses, love to lead people. But, there's a lot of folks that they speak with this extraordinary level of confidence about this very, very broad cloth of life. They can cover everything. They're health experts, they're business experts, they're professional development, their personal development. I mean, if you listen to everything that they're just extraordinary at some point, you kind of start hearing a charlatan. You kind of start hearing somebody that's kind of an egomaniac, right? And it's like, man, I mean, I can tell you right now, brother, I'm like, if you walk into a gym with me, I'm a lost guy. I don't know if I don't know if I'm supposed to curl a dumbbell or roll on it. I mean, like I'm all over the place, right? There are some things that I've worked really hard at for 25 years and I'm passionate about that I think I'm okay at. And I feel comfortable giving people guidance and advice. But social media, I'm a player, I'm active. I'm on all the platforms, even the new ones that just released. And I really enjoy them. But it is fatiguing for me to see people that have, they check all the boxes in every area and they want to be these gurus to people. I think it's discouraging, and I think it's false. I mean, it's just false. And some of them even talk about humility and arrogance and their own struggles in these areas, which I'm appreciative of their self-awareness, but it doesn't seem that they change their script. They continue down the same path of doing the same thing. And intermittently, they try to put on this little, show around humility. And it's just, even that seems disingenuous. So I don't, there's not many things that I get on a soapbox and get frustrated about, but that is one, and I got to tell you, I feel deeply inadequate in a lot of areas in life. And I'm okay with that. I mean, it doesn't make me feel like I'm less because of it.
So you used the word gurus a couple of times. And one thing you said earlier in our conversation is you said, we're not working to be a guru, only a guide. So I'm really curious what the difference is between guiding somebody and being a guru to them.
Yeah. So I love the question. So a guru is philosophical. There's someone that is definitely motivational, usually inspiring. I think we can paint in our head what a guru looks like. Let me tell you what I think a guide looks like. A guide is someone that can lay out a map and say, let me help you navigate this map Let me help you understand where you need to turn right, where you need to turn left, where you need to duck down. And they're going to guide, and they're going to be able to give you practical knowledge that gets you through the path of what you're trying to get through. And, there's a great book I read years ago, and it talked about the human operating system. And it talked about how when you have knowledge and when you have inspiration, you have transformation. But if you just have knowledge and you don't have inspiration, you're not going to have much. If you just have inspiration and you don't have knowledge, you're not going to have much. So, when I think about the area that I try to focus on having some expertise in, which is entrepreneurialism and helping people build businesses and to have success in business. It's a process of helping them understand what are the different stages of business. Like, it's a whole map, it's a whole guide. I can walk them through all those pieces, and it's very practical and it's very logical. Now, my passion and my motivation, and really the fact of where I came from and where I am, I hope is inspiring to them. But at the end of the day, if I can't walk them through a map and really be a guide to them, I think I'm being a guru. And I think it's a big problem. There's a lot of gurus that are talking today, and years ago they were referred to as charlatans. And I think today we call them gurus, but they're I don't think that's an endearing term, is to say that someone's a guru, and that's my opinion.
So what I'm hearing you say is that a guru might be able to motivate and inspire, but they can't for the longer term, because you've talked a little bit about long-term strategies. They can't for the longer term create or at least illuminate a roadmap for people to follow and then keep them accountable to staying on that path. Like, it's fleeting is what I'm hearing you say a guru might be able to provide. So it's a quick Instagram post versus mentorship.
So let me give you a little bit more of a yes, you're 100% on it. Let me give you a quick metaphor. So let's say that you go out tomorrow afternoon and you decide you're going to take a golf lesson. And sorry for these golf analogies, I actually don't play much golf, but you're going to go out and take a golf. All right. And so you're going to go take a golf lesson. You show up, the instructor's out there, you're on the driving range, and you're hitting balls, and you're hitting balls. And you really learn what the distance of the clubs are. If you hit a pitching wedge, it's going to go 100 yards. If you hit a 7-iron, it's going to go 150. You're going through this process, and you get it. And after several lessons, you decide that you're going to go out and you're going to go play around a golf. And so you go play around a golf. You walk up to, let's just say you walk up to the 9th hole. And it's a nice 200-yard shot. And if you've ever played golf before, there's a tree that's off to the far right. It's not anywhere near where you're going to hit the ball. Like, the green is right in front of you. The tree's over there. You see the tree, but the tree has nothing to do with anything. Well, if you play golf like I do, there's 100% chance that you're going to hit the ball at the tree and it's going to be under the tree, right? It should have never been in play, right? It should have never been in play. Now you've hit this damn ball, it's under the tree. And so you're standing under the tree, you're 50 yards out, you think back to this golf lesson that you had, what club you're supposed to use at 50 yards, you're looking at the green, the tree, remember the tree's right above you, the hole is actually hidden, you can't really see it. You have all these complexities, the wind's blowing. You get up, you go to hit your shot, and you hit the ball straight up into the tree and it comes straight down in front of you. I don't know if you've ever done that. I've done it a lot of times. Okay. So now the ball's right back where it was. And you're like, oh my gosh. Finally, you figure out how to get the ball out of there. This hole that should have been a par 4, you've scored an 11 on. You're telling your buddy to write down an 8. Please write down an 8. But you got an 11, right? And you go back, you finish a round, you go back to your golf instructor and you say, hey, listen, I was out playing yesterday. I was on number 9. You relive the whole story for him, right? And you're like, I was 50 yards out. I'd used the club you told me to use. What do I need to do? What do I need to do? And the golf instructor says, hey, I've never played a round of golf before. Mm-hmm. I'm a golf instructor. I teach people how to hit the ball. And so where am I going with all of that? A guide has situational awareness. A guide has been in the game. A guide has played. A guide has a lot of repetitions. A guide's truly in the mix of things. And so that's where, a guru, they're going to be able to give you a lot of superficial advice, but they're not going to have that practical level of tactical playing. And I hear a lot of people that talk about business, talk about building businesses, just the area that I'm in. And I always am interested, like, have they done it? And I'm not,
Mm.
I'm again, that golf instructor might motivate you to go out and play golf, but wouldn't it be better if they were a guide and you could come back and say, hey, let me explain what happened. And they said, oh yeah, I understand that situation. I've seen that play out 100 times. Let me tell you is what you need to do next time is you need to actually use your 3-iron and you just need to punch out and get on the edge of the green. And then you're going to be able to chip up, putt in. And hey, you're probably going to get a 6 or a 7, but you're not going to get an
It's not
11.
an 11. Yeah.
It's not an 11, man. So that,
That's a
that,
good point.
that's the difference for me.
I think the other thing that that framework does is it gives guys permission who have messed up in their lives to actually still be motivational and inspirational lead for people. Because a lot of the times what I've heard people say, and even in my own follies in my own personal life with relationships and business, is sometimes I begin to buy into or believe the idea that I'm no longer qualified to do this podcast or no longer qualified to talk with men about what it means to be a man. But based on what you're saying with being a guide, actually, if I'm able to successfully navigate those challenging circumstances, whether or not they were self-created or some external factor beyond my control, if I'm able to navigate those things successfully, I'm probably more qualified to continue to lead than had I been before, never having to deal with that particular hardship other people are dealing with.
You know, it's 100% true. And I think there's a lot of value in people sharing stories. And sharing stories is a different approach. Having conversations, listen to people riff back and forth like you and I are doing today, is different than proclaiming to be a fifth degree black belt and an expert in an area. I think the whole concept of these open, transparent conversations that we have, you know, you mentioned I was recently on, Dave Ramsey's show. Dave and I, we don't align perfectly on everything that he talks about. But one thing that I really love that he and others do is when you bring real practical people together and they have practical conversations and they're kind of learning from each other. That's not a badge of a guru. That's a connector, and that's someone that's really helping iron sharpening iron. And
Mm.
that's what we want to do, right? That's, again, it's biblical, but it really works. I mean, one of the early things I heard in life, I remember, is, hang around people that are going to help you get better. And it didn't say, I didn't hear hang around super successful people. I didn't hear hang around wealthy people. I didn't hear, all of these things. It was literally hang around people that are going to help you be better. And there are people that are in far different places in life, whether it be elevated positions or people that are really in the struggle, that I can learn from. And it helps me get better. So I don't, to your point, Ryan, just because you don't have it all figured out, you're of immense value. I mean, none of us have it figured out. Fine. And by the way, back to our conversation about gurus, man, if you're following or you're paying attention to someone who proclaims they have it all figured out, they're just not being honest, right?
Mm.
They're just
Yeah.
not being honest, right? I mean, you think about health, you think about kids, you think about marriages, you think about professional stuff, you think about that, man, nobody has it all figured out. You got these douchebags standing on top of their jets flexing, going, hey man, look at me. That I promise you that individual does not have it figured out, right? There's a heart problem right there, because that is not motivating. That's not the before and after weight loss picture. That's more of a pompous picture. So again, I get a little bit wound up about that. I just, I think, and look, you have to, not to get off on a tangent, but you have to surround yourself with people that are going to keep you grounded as well. And for me, that's my wife and kids. I mean, I can tell you right now, if I put a picture on, a social media platform of me in a plane or, any of the toys that I may have, within minutes, I'm telling you, I get a phone call that, like, Dad, what the hell are you doing? And, I'm like, so you've got to have some accountability people around you that keep you, thinking and talking straight. So, and I'm
Yeah.
not, I fail at all of this stuff, Ryan. And, but I can tell you, to me, it all comes back to the heart.
I want to pivot and shift gears. I wrote something down because I was inspired and intrigued by a framework that you use. And I think sometimes it bothers people because I ask a lot. They might say, I like this particular person, or I like this movie, or I like this business. And just because of way my mind works, I'm like, well, what do you like about that business? Or what do you like about that person? They're like, I don't know. I like, and they have a hard time at times articulating it. I'm like, no, I really want to know, like, what is it about that person that you like relative to, this person? I want to know, because if there's a formula, I want to figure it out so I can tap into that formula. And I think you have. I've always been curious about why certain people succeed in business and why some people don't. And I think it's easy to say, this is the easier to say, oh, they're doing the right things. Well, the right things can be learned, right? We can all learn the right things. So why does somebody who's doing all the quote unquote right things still not succeed to other people's levels? And one of the things that I think you touched on here, and you kind of highlight here, is this idea of instinct, intentionality, and innovation. And I think that first eye, that instinct, is really where we tend to overlook. Is there one of those that's more important than another? Because I mean, you can innovate, you can be intentional, but if you don't have instinct, like if you're missing any one of those, you're just not going to have the same level of success as somebody who hits all three, it seems like.
Yeah. Yeah. It's true. It's very true. Discernment, instinct, judgment. Um, I remember being a kid. I don't know, Ryan, if your parents were like this, but my parents told me a lot of different things, and they told me I heard a few times that I would understand someday, or someday you'll get it right. Now it was usually when I was getting disciplined for something.
Yeah.
Be like, I'm like, this isn't fair. And they'd say, well, someday you're going to understand. By the way, a lot of those things I still don't understand, FYI. Don't tell my parents. I'm like, whatever. And so, but
What you understand is they were just telling that so that you'd get off their case and just accept the punishment.
exactly,
You understand that.
exactly. Okay. So, it's discernment and judgment. I kind of like, I call it my gut a lot, right? But my gut's been built over doing what I do for 25 years. And that's
Mm-hmm.
discernment, judgment, instinct, gut. Let's kind of put those in the same bucket. And I do believe that it's most important, and that you really understand how to judge. And I judge is a tough word to use, but really understand how to have discernment around different things. I'll give you an example. So I have a great friend that was the chief people officer at Chick-fil-A for many years. And one of the things Chick-fil-A does a fantastic job at is hiring great people. Um,
Definitely. No doubt.
and they do a great job. And they have the three C's that they hire. I think it's three, maybe four, but it's character, competency, and I'm missing one. But they have these three C's that they hire from. And one of the things that, they focus in on is they want to hire people that have character. They don't want to hire characters.
Hmm.
And if you think about that, that's kind of deep, right? So for me, as I think back to being an entrepreneur, starting my first business, just starting in the professional world years ago, 2 decades ago, I was probably more intrigued by people that were characters and were a lot of fun. And, I could go on. And I probably didn't pay as much attention to character. And so I think you form the you'll understand someday are repetitions. Have those conversations, get to know people, study people. I mean, I pay attention to every personality and professional index testing platform that's out there, because I really want to. I'm not trying to be a psychologist, but I really want to understand what motivates people, what drives people, what are different about people. So I do think instinct and discernment and having good judgment of people is key. And you've got to hire for character, and overbeat someone that is trying to be a character. That's an example. You talked about intentionality, and I for me, it's I can't tell you anything that's happened in my life that doesn't feel like it's happened for the good, that I've not been intentional about. Meaning, intentionality has been a driving force for me. I mean, I intentionally, courted my wife. I could go down this long process of my life. And look, I'm not saying that I haven't been very fortunate and blessed. And I have been, I mean, in every scenario. And even when I've been unfortunate, sometimes it's proven to be fortunate. But
Mm-hmm.
being intentional is something that people, I think, in society today overlook, in comparison to, I want to be in the right place at the right time with the right people. That is important, but you can create those situations. And that's where being intentional and being relentless about being intentional is important. So for me, it's probably, discernment and intentionality are kind of two of the things that I try to continue to get better at every day.
Yeah, I want to hit on that. I actually just looked it up with Chick-fil-A because I was curious. It's character, competency. So you got those two right. The third is chemistry.
Chemistry. That's right.
Yep.
That's right.
So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's interesting.
Deanne Turner wrote a great book called Bet on Talent. And
Okay.
she's a great friend and was nice enough to mention me in the book. But it's such a, if you think about it, go to Chick-fil-A and they always have, the just people that are professional and kind, and these
Of
are young
course.
teenage kids. And what every conversation with someone at Chick-fil-A, what do they say? They say, it's my pleasure.
My pleasure. Yep.
My pleasure. They always say, it's my pleasure. And they say it, not in a fast, aggressive, I'm done with you, I'm supposed to say this. If you pay attention, there's some compassion and empathy, and they say it, authentically. So those little things are huge. I mean, I honestly, when we're hiring entry-level people into some of our businesses, I'm like, man, let's find out what these kids are doing that are leaving Chick-fil-A when they get done with school. Because we, if they don't go on to college, we'll take them.
Well, it also leads me to believe, like, if we're going to look for that in other people, I think it's probably a good idea that we evaluate whether or not we possess the same skill set, and that's something that we don't always. I am intrigued by your comments on instinct, because when I initially heard it, it almost leads you to believe, just a word itself, that it's inherent, that you either have it or you don't. And as you were describing that, I don't think that's true. I'm thinking about, I've got into hunting over the past 8 years or so, and I've immersed myself into the world of hunting, and I see these animals that I'm hunting, and I watch them. I might be stalking one, or watching it from afar, and they're so hard to kill. I mean, every animal I've ever hunted is so hard to kill, and I'm like, why is that the case? Because they want to stay alive just as much as I want to kill that animal and eat it. Uh, but there's things that you can't explain, like an axis deer on Hawaii. You'll be lined up for the perfect shot, and that thing is going to turn left. It with 100% certainty. And about 3 yards before it's supposed to turn left into your shooting window, it turns right with no apparent reason, no rhyme for do. Why does it do that? Instinct. There's something off. There's something leading that. But then you think about it, that's hundreds, thousands, maybe even tens or hundreds of thousands of years of evolutionary hardwiring that they're learning from their parents, and learning from nature, and learning from seeing their friends get eaten. So I think it is something that we can develop. We can develop that instinct, like you said, over 25 years of being in this business, or in entrepreneurship.
So here's what's cool about instinct is you can learn it over a long period of time, or you can surround yourself with people and educational awareness, which there's just an abundance of that we have at our fingertips today, to gain that instinct and to gain that knowledge, maybe a little quicker than you would otherwise. And think about hunting, and the metaphor that you use there is, if you're going out and you're going to go hunt a deer, or an elk or whatever it may be, any hunt, and you go hunting with Jim Shockey. Okay, Jim Shockey's been on a couple hunts. You go out with him, or Christian, one of these guys. I mean, I get a long list of guys that go out and hunt, but you go out and hunt with those guys. They're like, hey, let me explain to you what's going on here. Let me show you what's going on here. Let me be a guide to you. And you can really cut down on the time that it takes to figure out why animals behave the way they do, and how things happen. So, gosh, I wish YouTube and podcast and audiobooks would have been around when I was, 20
Can you
something years
imagine?
old.
Yeah.
Oh man. Cause I mean, I was like, I mean, I didn't have the right cassette tape to listen to, right? I mean, I'm listening to, Quiet Riot, and I should have been, or whomever the music was that I was listening to then, and versus putting in today's age, I could get any podcast in the world and listen to these people that have authentic experience, or audiobooks, or YouTube. So, I think when people, you really hit on something key, and I hope that people are hearing that, is that instinct is something that can be learned. You have to be open to being learned. Having good judgment, having good discernment can be learned, but it is so imperative that you're learning these things from the right sources. And that's where things get a little bit noisy and complicated in our world, is making sure you're surrounding yourself with the right sources of knowledge and wisdom. And you're not just listening to the next talking head that has this, they can go into this great philosophical reason something happens, or they have this great acronym. I'm not down on all of those, but while we have these resources available today that help us expedite and advance things like learning instincts and having discernment and having judgment, it's almost a bit of a dichotomy, not to use a big word, but it's almost a bit of a dichotomy, because now you have to kind of sort through where are the qualified, good sources of information that you can learn from. But it's totally a learned skill. Look, I agree that you talked about the axis deer, and I think about, those beautiful axis deer that are on Lanai that everybody goes and hunts, that, that's a small island. And those axis deer have had a lot of guys pointing guns at them, right? Or bows, or whatever they may be. And then they do have instincts, but those instincts, think about where those instincts come from. And they're taught those things, through their mom or their dad, no different than anything else, right? They don't have a great Rolodex or source of different areas to learn from. They kind of have that legacy and limited information. Not to try to compare humans to axis deers, but man, think about all the resources we have available to be able to truly make sure we're getting the education that we need to make good decisions. And to your point, Ryan, I know I'm being long-winded, I'm sorry. What's more important than making good decisions?
Agreed. I mean, that's what it comes down to, right? That's going to determine the quality of your life. Did you make enough good decisions? And did they trump the bad ones that you made? Because we're always going to make some bad ones, right?
For sure.
I'm glad you brought up Jim Shockey. I just got his newest book, a pre-release of his newest book. He's got a new book coming out. He's coming on the podcast in a couple months, so I'm excited to have him on the podcast.
Jim's great. We one of the companies I have is Christensen Arms, and we make
I see the hat.
Yeah, we make bolt action rifles, and Jim is one of our just partners, and we do a lot with him, and he's a fantastic professional, and we're really honored to have him on the team.
Well, and what's even cool, I mean, to go back into what we were saying, then you look at his daughter, which I think it's not Ava. I think is it Ava or Eva?
I think anyways, she's big. She's big. She's big.
She's going to eclipse Jim.
Yeah, she is. Well, by the way, that should be the design, right? That's how it's supposed to work.
That's the point. That's the point. But what the point I'm making there is that, you have his daughter, who's a phenomenal hunter. She's great at what she does. And where did she learn that? Well, she had access to it through her father, and then she developed the skill set to be successful in her own right.
It's funny. I'll tell you a real quick story. My son, Zach, he's 26. When he was 23 or so, I've been involved in the NASCAR business for a long while in different areas of sponsorship and stuff. And Zach went out to learn how to be a NASCAR driver, and got his license and started racing, and he did a good job, and I was proud of him. But one of my acquaintances, friends in the NASCAR world, his dad was one of the biggest names in NASCAR, and he was a big name in NASCAR, still is today. And I just, one day I looked at Zach and I said, "Hey," I said, "listen," I said, "I'm sorry I'm not Dale Earnhardt, and because you're not Dale Earnhardt Jr." And so there's, I mean, if you've got that legacy in your family, that's a great place to learn. And you see it often because people have extraordinary coaches. I mean, whether it be, whether it be business, whether it be in a sports, I mean, there's some interesting stories there. By the way, I mean, apparently LeBron James's son is a pretty good basketball player, right?
Phenomenal.
You hear a
Phenomenal.
lot about him, right? And you'd say, yeah, he was, he's a tall young man, but who's his coach been for, the past 20 years of his life, right?
Right. Right.
How cool is that? So, there's a lot of stories we can pay attention to where, if you are surrounded by people that can guide you and coach you and help you, you're going to have a competitive advantage.
Well, and I think we need to say also that we should never discount that somebody else has a great coach, because our access to coaching and information and resources is unparalleled in any other time in human history. And if you're saying, well, I don't have the information, and you're using that as an excuse not to excel, that's on you, not the lack of information that you have available to you.
Well, 100%. And, look, my dad is, a blue collar, worker, and has been a tradesman, his whole life, just, climbing ladders, working hard his whole life. And my mom sells flooring. And, I could kind of go through that story. And if I think about where I am today, and by the way, my parents are amazing, hardworking, extraordinary people, and they have a great quality of life. And I was interested in a lot of the things that they were doing as I was young, but it was mostly what I was impacted and influenced by was their work ethic. And I am, part of the reason I am who I am today is because I witnessed my parents' work ethic. And I said, man, they wake up and go to work every day and bust their butts. So, it doesn't, I guess the reality of what you're living in, no matter what it is, you can learn from it, good or bad, right? Good or bad. And I think about my dad just told me all the time, I want you to learn from my mistakes. I'll tell you what that motivated me to do. That motivated me to learn from people's successes. I was like, man, I want to spend my time deconstructing success. I'm going to make enough mistakes on my own. But, I think you bring up a good point that everyone's not, LeBron James is not every basketball player's dad. And Dale Earnhardt is not every NASCAR driver's dad. But we still have the ability to learn, from the circumstances that we're in. And we have so much available at our fingertips. It's amazing.
Yeah. Well, Vic, I appreciate you, man. I know you're a busy man, and I know that you have a ton going on with all your businesses and family and everything else. I would like to give you a minute to tell the guys where to connect with you, because I'm sure there's so many who have listened to this and heard your insight and want to know more about what you're doing, including Epic Community as well, which you briefly mentioned. So where can guys learn more about what you're up to?
Yeah, I don't, I would say the best place to find me is, I'm on all the social platforms at Vic Keller, just VICKELLER. And then if you go to vickeller.com, I just passionately have launched a community called Epic. And the whole objective of Epic is to bring like-minded, driven people together. And whether you're a young person that, wants to be successful as a professional working for a corporation, you want to start a business, or you're someone that's been at it for 2 or 3 decades and you want to continue to get sharper and better, we've created a community of like-minded individuals, and we do a ton of fun stuff. But you can learn about Epic at vickeller.com. And man, I just really appreciate you giving me the privilege to visit with you and be on your show here. I love what you stand for. I love, this is one of those podcasts that I definitely point my 2 sons towards. There's some that I'm like,
Awesome.
man, I got to keep away from, but this
Yeah.
is,
Those are the ones they'll listen to,
this,
though.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Every once in a while, right. It's like the music too. Huh? So,
Yeah,
but
for
no,
sure.
I'm really grateful for your heart and your mission, and man, just your courage and relentless commitment to what you're doing.
Thanks, Vic. That means a lot coming from you. I appreciate that. All right. We're going to sync everything up so the guys know where to go. Thanks again for joining me and imparting some of this wisdom. I know you have a lot more, so I'm going to direct the guys there. Appreciate you, brother.
All right. Thank you, man.